Hey, life be lifing, people. Oh my gosh. Of course, everyone is here waiting for me. Maybe they weren't. I had so much drama today. But guess what? I'm here. I just need to get the word out now that I am late and that, yeah, I couldn't I couldn't sort out today. I just couldn't get it done. Typically I would be well made up. In fact, you know what? We're going to go with the flow. We are definitely going to go with the flow. Good night, everyone. I am going to send some messages on my phone. I hate being late. But guess what? This is real life. And the funny thing is that sometimes, despite our best planning, we cannot help the fact that we are going to be late. And today was definitely one of those days. I'm on now. Yeah, I see people beginning to join, and I heard a notification go off on my phone. So this live, I had people say they were looking forward to it, and I am sincerely hoping that I'm even running a little hoarse. Let me tell you, I have been having a day. Today, this laptop that I'm using decided it needed to have its whole audio drivers fixed up. Thank you to my special IT persons. You know who you are. And then I had issues with transportation, and I was able to be on my way to get home exactly at 7 o'clock. Sip of water. But I was able to get on my way safely. And to the people that helped me to get on my way and get home safely, a huge thank you to you as well. You really went above and beyond. That's just a bit of the real life that is happening. And if you know, you know, because there's a reference somewhere in there. Now, I was fully prepared for this. I was going to change into my Ignis stuff. I'm checking my hair. Um, Lipstick still looks decent. Right. All right. So, what are we talking about tonight? Um, we have a lot to go over. It's been 2 weeks since I did the last live, and the last live was actually going to be focused on if you are interested in getting a job in compliance and you've not been in the field. What are some of the things that you might be doing that could be hurting your chances? And I got really good feedback from that from people who are in compliance, but they were also looking forward to tonight. And I hope I don't disappoint. I'm going to keep it to 5 tips again. And one of the things that I also noticed is that my subscriber count is going up even faster. Last check, it's almost at 1,600. Thank you to every single subscriber, new and old. I love the positive vibes. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Now, whether you're watching live, and those who are joining me live, thank you for your time, or after the live, please share this with anyone you think that would get value out of the discussions, because it is geared towards empowering compliance professionals. And if you're watching and you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Hit a like. It helps the algorithm. It's one of the things that YouTubers will tell you to do, but it's a legit thing. And so, when I put out these lives and you circulate it around, even before I go live, you can hit like. You could do that. But anyways, enough about the getting the plugs. I think this live is going to be a bit longer than the last one. And it's definitely career advice that will transcend compliance. So compliance officers, money laundering reporting officers, KYC analysts, sanctions compliance experts, this all applies to you. But if you're just a professional in a job, there are a few tips that I think you will be able to take away from this. Now, with any content that's longer than 3 minutes, I have to give a disclaimer. This content is all all my stuff, all my views, and it does not represent the views of any regulatory body or international standard setter. Now, with that out of the way, we can definitely dive in. If you're here for the first time, my name is Simone Martin, and I am a lot of things. And I identify as an unconventional regulator. But I would like to think of myself as also being very approachable and being very practical. I like to give solutions. And in compliance, that is one of the areas that it's difficult sometimes to actually get firm answers, especially now with the risk-based approach. Everybody is risk-based and they're like, oh, well, it depends on this and that. You could still have legit live answers. And I've been in this job for almost 23 years now, to be specific. But why I think I can actually bring some value to a lot of discussions in and around this space. Some of you may have known that I was a teacher, and I still teach. I could still say I teach, but for more than 15 years now. And that started back as far as 2003, where I was properly adjunct faculty teaching business classes at our community college. But the latter part of the teaching exposure was delivering ICA content and bespoke trainings that were developed to teach compliance professionals, other regulators at conferences, at forums in compliance, governance. Very recently, I've been asked to do quite a bit on artificial intelligence. Right, this is what happens when I don't get to prepare for the live. Artificial intelligence and regulation. I'm also very deep into digital assets and fintech. And so it is one of the things that it doesn't matter how I feel, I'm always excited to teach and to engage and to discuss. And so for all of those who may have been the student in class that talked too much, it could be that you have a career in teaching and public speaking. So lean into that particular talent, okay? It's not something that you need to be mindful of or to be demure. I'm loving that trend. But on to the topic at hand. How to advance your career in compliance. Now, for this, I have distilled what I think are the top 5 points, and it comes to my mind when I decided to do this topic, even like before 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about the different discussions that I had with compliance professionals and some of the issues that they have had in their career. And what I saw as impediments. They might have been in a job, but then they weren't getting the respect, they weren't getting the opportunities. It was like, they just kind of got stuck. And I thought about it and I wrote out some points. And so you might see me glancing, because I have the points, you have to document. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. You have to consider all of these. And again, some of these tips will apply in compliance or outside of compliance. So the first tip is to make sure that your education is up to date. Now, I don't mean that as a part of trainings that revisit what is money laundering, it's placement, layering, and integration. No, that's not the training I'm talking about. You need to make sure that you continue to upskill at least in one area, maybe 2, that will augment your career, that will actually boost you. And I mentioned 2 of these topics in the last live for people who are considering a field in compliance, but I've also seen it where you have compliance professionals being compliance officers for years and, having had sight of different things from different places. The report writing is very relevant because there are some people who write a lot. I am one of those people, and I had to actually learn how to write for different audiences. So I had to think about who is reading this? Do I need to have a long magnus opus on what regulatory issues are to be contemplated in the 21st century? or do I need bullet points, right? Or do I need something that's succinct? So report writing is definitely a major one that a lot of people can benefit from. Another one is the data analytics. And I am going to drill down on that probably in a separate live, because data analytics might seem like, okay, well, why does someone want me to get into the tech? Um, let's go backwards. Record keeping, because that's a big thing for you to be compliant. And how your records are kept and how your data is managed is a huge part of you being compliant, or you being able to be compliant. But then you, as the compliance officer, need to be able to look at large data sets and be able to speak to them in a way that gives confidence that you, A, know where your risks are, B, you know where you might need to have a little more scrutiny. The data might be telling you that you might need to train staff differently. So you know, if client onboarding happening and it's not happening in the way it's supposed to happen. You could have some other areas to explore as well, but those are the two that are really critical for the compliance officers. Now, I am not forgetting the compliance professionals who are consultants, because that is also a huge cross section of professionals. And if you are consulting, a compliance consultant, consider looking into project management training, which could help you to navigate and manage multiple clients without burning out yourself. So you want to be performing optimally. You want to maximize the business that you capture. You want to be able to deliver qualitative engagements following, you know, you've gotten this contract, you're going to do these things, you're going to do a gap analysis on their, you know, whether their risk assessment, their KYC, regulatory compliance, something. But project management will help you to make sure that you're able to maximize your time without getting burnt out. And where you get the training, and of course I'm biased, but where you get the training, hey, Gabriel, is just as important, sometimes maybe even a little more so, than the topic that you are going after. Now, I am not endorsing any particular training other than Ignis Solutions Limited, but you know, there are a number of Ivy League and Russell Lee universities that have short courses that I think you could explore that could add value. And a lot of those short courses are virtual, so, or they're hybrid, so you don't have to be in that country to participate. And I'm not just giving my opinion here, I practice what I preach. Because, you know, my last training, I mean, that might be getting a little rusty now, and I'm actually looking into what else that I can do. But my last training was in relation to fintech, with a Russell League University fintech and certain applications. I was looking into coding and understanding some of the challenges that could be had with coding. I had a foray into data analytics. So I practice what I preach. I'm not telling you to do something that I wouldn't do, and I think that it has done really well for my career, and it's something that I have done incrementally. If some of you have done your due diligence on me and you've gone into my bio and see, you know, all the different things I would do, you would see that pattern. So definitely consider that and add value to yourself. Use your next bonus to invest in yourself, not in a new bag or a belt, or I don't know what the brand name things are for that are really in vogue. But, you know, it's one of the, and I have to say it like that because I remember having a discussion with a compliance professional within the Caribbean region. And I was talking about this exact thing because they were complaining about, you know, having some of these issues. And I suggested, you know, a particular course that was leaning towards an area that she was good at, and it was, you know, the industry that she was a compliance officer in. I thought it would have been a really good course, and the course was, say, $2,500, and she, you know, clutched pearls like, oh, that's so expensive. And I looked, you know, I kept my face, you know, because it's like, little judgment here. I kept my face neutral and said, well, something to think about. But I was kind of like, I looked across and I'm seeing this damn Louis Vuitton. I have a thing for Louis Vuitton personally. And I see this Louis Vuitton bag that I know is more than $3,000. And no, it wasn't a super fake. And to me, that said that she was not necessarily willing to make that adjustment mentally to prioritize investment in herself. I could be wrong. I don't know if you want to throw a comment in there in terms of what your view is in terms of spending money on courses. And, things are getting tight. Inflation is a thing. Taxes, a lot of, you have unexpected expenses like vehicular expenses. But for prioritize yourself. I think it's really important. And we have a lot of people, especially in the Caribbean region, complaining about these issues, but they don't invest in themselves. They expect the firm to do everything for them. And while you have firms that are willing to help train you up, it is not necessarily going to be the things that you need to really level up your career, because some firms will train you up because it might be in a particular country, the regulator might say make sure they get their training, but they might not want to give you that that je ne sais quoi piece of training that will make you like a titan, like a god like status. So again, definitely something to think about. You could drop it in the comments and let me know what you think about that. Now, the second point is a bit of a risky one, but it's, again, I practice what I preach. At least once every 3 to 5 years, if you are in the same firm, ask for a 360 review. It's a different type of evaluation, not the one-on-one with the manager or the board reviewing you. And it is not meant to permanently replace your traditional evaluation, but they typically don't have an element of 360 reviews. And if they don't have one, request it. You can think that you are doing the best job. And I remember having the discussion with someone and they said, yeah, they might think they're all that, but self-praise is no praise. And I agreed. I was like, I agree. Let them, let them go through that process and see. And the results were that, yeah, they were all that, a bag of chips and a 20-ounce Coke. So, it could be something that validates that you're doing well in the best case scenario, but it can be an uncomfortable proposition because for some firms, it might be a toxic environment where there are people who are like, yeah, let me go get this. And if it's a toxic environment, you can ask for an unofficial 360 review from at least 5 members of staff from varying levels. And you could create that and ask for that kind of feedback if it is that you have concerns that, this is just a too toxic an environment, this will be used against me. And one of the things, like whether it's official or unofficial, because I'm terming it unofficial, these should not be the people that you are just chummy with. These should be the people who are going to tell you like it is. Sometimes the truth hurts, but sometimes the truth is what you need to hear. And once you receive the results, make sure to take some time to go through them objectively. 360 reviews can be painful. Sometimes you will get feedback, and there's, the official ones, they anonymize who responses are coming from. So it wouldn't be like, uncomfortable feelings or whatever. But you take a moment and you look at the results and you think, Lord, I didn't do so well in this, I don't communicate effectively. What are they talking about? I'm the best orator there is. No, you might be very well spoken, but you are ineffective in getting a message to be received in the manner that you want it to be. So your communication skills need work. And you could also have something that's identified as a strong point. Oh, Jane is excellent at providing guidance and training, but she just doesn't communicate well. So it identifies the skills that you are stronger at, some stuff that you're weaker at, and what the feedback does is give you an opportunity to improve yourself. and to help develop your own brand. Because you might be of the mind, using the communication example, you might be of the mind that you're an excellent communicator and the 360 review tells you something different. It is not for you to just get up all up in your feelings and say they may know what I'm talking about and just discount everything that has been said to you. It is an opportunity for you to look at communication strategies and be more effective as a communicator. So take the information, don't get in your feelings, don't be offended, adjust, improve, and become better. And even asking for a 360 review could be a sign of, maturity, professional maturity. And I think it will go well to help you navigate your career with the current firm you're at, or even future firms, regardless as to whether the feedback was objective or not. In some cases, you might have people who decide that they're going to be sticking it to you, and even anonymized, you could tell, like, okay, this is John evaluating Jane, and he just got issues that, he get a promotion because he had this compliance failure, and I cited that. So, they're going after. Put things in context, but make sure that you take all of the information, even if it's somebody who wants to be roasting you, into perspective and use it to your best effect. I think that is one of the things that could really help you. My fridge is talking. But anyways, the third point, this is a big one. I had to learn this too. Learn to negotiate. In this life, you will need to negotiate for everything. But in compliance, where an area that is seen as, preventing the farm from going out and getting business. They go out with their spare, they go out hunting, they bring back in this thing, and it's like, wait, is it contaminated? Is it carrying certain microbes and thing? And in this world we live in, it's like, was it wild caught? I don't know. You need to learn to negotiate, because compliance always meets a challenge. And so, in terms of negotiating, not just your salary, not just asking for resources, you need your training. Let's talk about your training. A lot of compliance officers, again, will want to do some sort of additional training, and they might not even engage fully to say that, let me ask the question. No, I'm gonna do it myself because I want them to know why I'm doing and everything else. And there's a bit of strategy in relation to that. But my thing is that you have to be a bit transparent. There's a whole ethic element to it, and to make sure that you are able to be to negotiate certain positions, get what you want, and move on. Don't be stuck up in, again, and this is something else we do in the Caribbean. We do it in the Caribbean too much. Even when you're going for a new job, sometimes they're paying you buco bucks. They're paying you big money. And then you get in the job and you want to do some training, and they will say to you, it's like, oh, well, we pay you, and we didn't contemplate that in your hiring thing. Start that from the discussion on, at exploring a job. And here's the thing, your training, your ongoing training, think about that like how we need oxygen. You need to do that on a regular basis. And so that's another area where compliance officers tend to stagnate. They go for the low-hanging fruit and do some of the trainings, but and they've checked a box, especially where it is required. I think it's almost in every country now, because it is an international standard for annual AML training for the whole staff, but that includes tailored training for compliance professionals and the board of directors. But it's like, beyond checking a box, have you really done anything to level up? Again, negotiate. You also need to negotiate in relation to some of the challenges, because if you're introducing a new policy to say, well, we have to exit these relationships, but you have client managers who are like, no, but I've known them all this years, and I'm godfather to their 4 kids and their dog and everything else. And you have this reluctance or reticence or even resentment from you having input in a decision as to whether to continue a client relationship. It shouldn't be like, well, you got to do what I say and turn off. Again, that would probably show up in the 360 review. But you need to negotiate so that they will see it as their that as a outcome that is good for them. And again, this is something that I had to do my little, research and go and do my reading and everything on. And there's another channel that I subscribe to, and I read the book. Well, I read the book first, and then I got to the channel. They do trainings on a regular basis, but it is. I don't know that they do any virtual trainings per se. They have virtual like meetings or whatever, but it was created by Chris Voss, a former FBI hostage negotiator. The book is called Splitting the Difference. And he is the founder and I think CEO of the Black Swan Group. The channel used to be called the Black Swan Group channel, but it had a name change. So what I'll do, I'll look for the link to his channel and put that in the description after the live. I think that, and they have like, of course, YouTube. So, content. So they have shorts. So they have, that's under a minute. They have short form content that's like between a minute to 4 minutes. And then they have longer trainings and discussions or exposure. And again, not all training would require you to spend money, but certainly something like that is something I think would be useful to start. Maybe you can get the audiobook, because I got the audiobook for it. I actually ordered the actual book, but then I got the audiobook because, we won't get 2-day Amazon delivery here. So I got the audiobook and I listened to it, and it's a good listen in terms of his voice and everything. And that was another thing as well, because his skill is communication and negotiation. And so he has to give this sense of calm. He has to build trust. He spoke about sometimes when you're having these discussions with terrorists or other people who have hostages, you almost sound like a Saturday night DJ, talking to them very calmly, making sure that they feel safe, making sure that they feel like they can trust you, and that you have to demonstrate the trust as you go along. It is a skill. And so the Saturday night DJ is something that somebody else said to me in relation to one of my trainings. Actually, no, I was a guest lecturer at a university a couple years back. And they said, it was like, sometimes you feel like you're a Saturday night DJ just speaking into the void, but people do resonate with it. So learning to negotiate is definitely, I think, something that would add value to your career, regardless as to what area you're in. So the fourth point to level up in your compliance career is to become the undisputed expert in at least 2 areas of compliance. Now, again, this is advice I have taken on board myself. But think about the value proposition for you. How can you demonstrate that you're worthy of advancement if you remain average? Even if you are improving your knowledge and expertise, it has the effect of water that's boiling very slowly. You know that you're getting hotter. Or in the case of competency, you know that you are killing it and you're expanding your knowledge base and that you are even more flawless. But no one else can tell unless they actually engage with you directly in a meaningful way. So think about it. A pot can be there or a kettle can be on and the water is beginning to boil. If you are not close enough, you can't see, those the little waves that you will get when you see the water now being displaced towards coming up to a boil, but it's hot. And if you keep the temperature just right, you could have that kind of little wavy effect. It's almost 100 degrees, but nobody can tell that you're boiling unless you bubble over. And you can actually bubble over by becoming the expert in two things, and think about how experts are sought after and how they are able to command a higher price. When you engage an expert, you immediately become more valuable. I have to take a sip of water. And the smart water makes you smart. We would like to believe that. But yes, if you become the expert, and some people might be like, well, why not one area? Everybody can become the expert in one area. It's rare that you have experts that are covering at least two areas. And the more difficult the area, the better. Because when an area is incredibly difficult, people tend to run away from it. But at some point in time, you're going to need that expertise. But if you find that you can become that area in that particular thing, people will be beating down your door, and all of a sudden it will be like, well, John, if you're Jane, well, John, I'm considering my employment options. And I have seen this work for other professionals. In one particular industry, this one particular staffer became the undisputed expert in two aspects of their operations. And he was personable, clients loved him, the engagement, it wasn't compliance. And people recognized it. People talk, you don't know where that information is going to go in terms of how well they're treated and how knowledgeable he is and engagement and everything else. But it wasn't long before the headhunters came, basically like Pepe Le Pew, telling you more about your eyes. And he stayed at the firm, but he was able to basically write his own salary. And that is what you want as a compliance expert. You want to be the undisputed expert. You want to be a great communicator. You want people to be like, yes, proud to have you on their team. And so that particular expertise is something that, again, it's almost like a parent when your child excels at something and it is like they've done exceptional work and you're just bursting at the seams like, yes, that's me, somebody recognizes them. Oh, yes, Jane is with us, and we pride ourselves in taking good care of her. It's the same thing in your career. If nobody ain't proud of you and nobody feels that you are expert, they're not going to seek you out for advice. They're not necessarily going to be trying to throw buckets of money at you. Remember, we're talking about trying to advance your career. And then as it relates to expertise, my leg is going numb. As it relates to expertise, I've seen the different areas where some people become the experts and they get a little too arrogant and self-centered and them got to pay me. Make sure you give it and make sure that you demonstrate some thought leadership. It could be a comment to a LinkedIn post. It could be a blog. It could be any number of things, but make sure that you have your opportunities to demonstrate thought leadership. It could be an internal memo. It could be an intro group document. It could be engaging with clients. And I know client compliance officers don't typically engage with clients, but if the opportunity presents itself, don't come across as the cold and uncaring compliance officer that's just assessing this person as a high risk business and moving swiftly along with life. It actually goes a long way to helping your career if it is that you become an expert in not one but two things. Helps you to differentiate yourself and you level up and you keep on that particular space. I don't know if anybody's interested in the areas that I sought to become an expert in. I actually had the thought to do it. I focused on two areas and then it ended up being three. The first two areas was trust and corporate services providers from the regulatory side and from the operational side. And I recognize that in order to be an exceptional regulator of a particular space, I needed to understand all the business modalities. And not to say that I understand everything. Like you can't drop me into a trust company and expect me to be able to incorporate a company unless they have really good manuals to incorporate a company in 10 minutes. But in terms of the operational elements, I took the time to ask a lot of questions and to ask them in maybe the same questions in different ways to different people to understand the different modalities. And when it came to that particular topic, I went off and I made sure to get the professional qualifications to back that up as well. So TP qualified, which you don't often see with a regulator unless they were in the industry. And again, make sure that when you go after the expertise in this area, go to what was it, point two, to go and get the training that would augment your attractiveness to the market. So again, like fiduciary services, TEP qualification. And the next one was amlcft expertise. I wanted to be the expert in that. And I think the moment for me came years ago when I was at a local conference and we had people here from one of the alphabet organizations, and I was moderator, mistress of ceremonies, and they work with AML. They are the standard setters, and they asked Simone, which recommendation isn't really? And they had a moment of brain fog. But the fact that you asked me in front of everybody else, I was like, I might be that thing now, that expert. So again, and then in terms of training, yes, I have my compliance qualification, but I'm also FATF assessor trained by the nature of the job. But even outside of being FATF assessor trained, you have to have an intimate knowledge of the recommendations, the interpretive notes, the application. I mean, I read mutual evaluation reports for other countries just to get a sense of what's happening in the world and how it's being applied. And these are the things that if you're, and pick an area that you're passionate about, it helps a lot. And if you're passionate about it, you'll be able to go after it and it will not feel painful, right? So again, this is something that could apply to you regardless as to what career you are in. So let's see, the fifth point. The fifth point was a hard one because I had to distill it in another avenue. I've had a lot of discussions with compliance professionals, and a lot of them never one day fell under my remit, never one day. And I've met them on the margins of conferences. And I have had questions raised on a number of things. And in the discussions that we've had, I recognize that those compliance officers had some challenges in their careers because they didn't understand the motivations for staff to actually embrace compliance versus non-compliance or doing it the way that they've done it. And understanding those motivations are important. For example, when client relationship officer, manager, assistant administrator is being provided with, as the Bajans will say, an ignorant bonus at the end of the year because they bring in volume, to hell with your due diligence, okay? That is, the incentive is a motivator for non-compliance. And when you understand that you have certain drivers motivating staff towards not being compliant, you could have the best manuals in the world, you could have the best internal audit, you could have the best of everything, the trainings, systems, everything. They will find a way to circumvent it if the reward mechanism is not geared towards compliance. And especially if there's no accountability for non-compliance. That's the next element of that. But even beyond that, some of the motivators for compliance for non-compliance, and sometimes it's easier to do the non-compliance versus compliance, is that sometimes people feel that they're doing your job for you. Compliance ain't supposed to onboard every person unless you only onboarding one person a month. And even then, that's not the role for compliance officers. And a lot of people conflate compliance officers with onboarding and for them to do the monitoring. Compliance is the responsibility of everybody. Go back to that negotiation point. But again, if you don't understand the motivators for why people behave, and this is going into a bit of behavioral science, and I did a blog in 2021 as to why I think behavioral science and behavioral analytics will become a part of the regulatory fit and proper check. Think FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. You would then appreciate why it is that this would be a discussion point now, because these are the things that help keep you being viewed as an hindrance instead of a help to the wider firm or to different people in the firm. Maybe the board of directors thinks you're great, but again, you don't know, because especially in bigger firms, you don't know, you can't look at everything, you can't catch everything. You should have a robust internal audit process and all these different things, but it is critical on you to actually understand the motivators. And when you understand what motivates people, thank you, Megan. When you understand what motivates people in relation to compliance, you can actually reverse engineer what you need to do, whether training processes, what points you need to make to resonate on a particular issue, and help people really buy into compliance. You need the wins. You need and go after quick wins. And that's another thing. I wrote a paper about gamifying compliance, and I'm still wanting to do that as a thing and build an app. I'm going to do that. Look out for that. Damn it. I'm going to do that. But think about everything else. You know, you have gamification, well, gamification. So you actually like give incentives for compliance, and you will have very compliant organizations. And if you're interested in developing it with me, DM me. You can DM me on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I have one of my LinkedIn links in the description. But yeah, it is one of the aspects that I see a lot of compliance officers missing the psychological elements to it. I think it's really, really critical. So, 8 o'clock. So let's recap, right? So 5 points, you know, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know what's coming up. So the first one, ensure that your education is up to date. Don't rest on a degree and a compliance qualification that you received years ago. Level up, make sure that you remain aware of what's going on, because, you know, you could become obsolete if you don't. 2, get a 360 evaluation. This could be in addition to your traditional evaluation, but and it could be an unofficial 360 review if you feel the environment is a little toxic. But it is so important for you to understand how you are being viewed in your role. And I will admit, it can be a gamble in some cases, because you might think that you're all that in a bag of chips and you ain't even get through the door. You ain't even like a little 6-piece nuggets, right? So the outcome can be painful. Truth can be painful. But in all cases, once you receive genuine feedback, it will allow for growth and development. The third point is to learn to negotiate. In compliance, you're going to need to negotiate a lot. And it is a skill that you need to get. And I remember one time I was absolutely bitching about a particular issue to my former managing director, right? And so Small Island, everybody knows who that is. And he made a comment to me and he said, you get what you negotiate. And it wasn't money we were talking about, but it was like, okay, I'll remember that. So quiet shout out to my former MD for saying that, but it's very important and it has served me well since. The fourth point is to become an expert in at least 2 areas. So being good at everything is often seen as less valuable. I don't know. I like being a jack of all trades, but in terms of being a jack of all trades, at least let 2 topics really stand out, because people are usually good at least one thing. So challenge yourself to do a deep dive into 2 facets of compliance. And remember, if it's a harder area of compliance, it can actually be much more valuable, because that means everybody's running away from it. So you run to it, and then guess what? you write your own checks. And it can change your outlook in compliance when you are engaged more often. Five is to understand what motivates people into compliance or non-compliance. And this is basically so that you can become the compliance whisperer. Learn what the motivators are for compliance and non-compliance, and it will make your life so much easier in terms of tackling some of the the the, the blockages that you would have when you're engaging. Because the blockages can be from different places. It can be from management. It can be from frontline staff. It could even be from the board of directors who are not really on board. So you get the quick wins. And once you learn what motivates people, let me tell you, you could do a lot from there. Now, of course, five tips. But if I said five, there's a bonus. And if you've been watching, you would know that. And I started it when I started the channel with the basics. This one is going to be the controversial one. You ready? This is the controversial one. Leave when you can no longer grow. And this is for anyone in any career. If you are having the equivalent of a Groundhog's Day and everything is basically the same all the time, it's time. And I'm sure many of you have heard about Who Moved My Cheese and all these different things, but challenge yourself and leave your comfort zone, because you might feel like, okay, I finally have the knack of it. Maybe you have the knack of it, you stay that year and you try to see that you can, expand your mandate. But if it is that you can no longer grow, there is a danger of you staying in that comfort zone while the world continues to change and evolve and transcend. And then we're wearing headsets and we're communicating our compliance frameworks from a Neuralink that Elon Musk creates. And you, my dear, have become obsolete. So it might be a bit controversial. And again, in the Caribbean, we have had a culture of staying loyal to jobs, even when the jobs are not loyal to us. Because, it's what our parents did, it's what our grandparents did. The younger generation, the current generation, some people are like, yeah, throw them away. But, there's some things that could be learned from the younger generation. And if it is that you're not growing, you're not being challenged, quietly plan your exit strategy. I think it's really, really important. The Who Moved My Cheese, I think there's updates to it as well. I think that is one of the toughest decisions to make. And I have had, again, this comes back to many a quiet discussion with compliance officers and even other professionals in other careers in other countries. I have a wide network of family, family, friends, and I've had, I don't have a huge cadre of friends in the fintech field, but I do have a few, like at least a dozen. And we have these discussions all the time. And it's like in that particular field, it is more normal for them to be like, Simone, it was time, I was Silicon Valley and da 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 da, but I'm wanting to see what's happening here in Singapore. And so, was it an easy decision for me to just up and leave the US and go to Singapore, where you have a lot of rules and you had to get somebody to help you transition in and everything else. And of course, the work ethic is different and thing, but the opportunity to grow, to learn, to build new networks was tremendous, and it was the best decision that they ever made. And they stayed 2 years, and then they were able to go back to some other third country, and they did, they have just continued to move from strength to strength. And especially in a space like the fintech industry that moves so quickly, it's almost like how, for some of you, this might be a little cringy, but it's almost like how in the science field, when they're looking to do research and they use certain animals and things because they have a shorter lifespan, so they can study these things over a shorter period of time. The fintech industry is almost like the lab rats for career and how career developments can go. And you can see the whole spectrum in terms of effective altruism is BS, and that you probably need to be looking at that with a marker to see what criminality may be going on. Interestingly enough, what's the name of the company that also had this position about effective altruism, and it was almost like a SBF 2.0. To the other side of the spectrum, where it's like, we go from here and then we go from there, and then it's like global leader and everything else. So yeah, it is one of the areas that one of the discussion points that we don't often have. I think I'm going to have a LinkedIn post on this point um, following the live. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted me to talk about in terms of career advancement, but that is pretty much all I have. In terms of, oh, I can add this because this wasn't in the notes, but the BVI had its exposure to Panama Paradise, Panorama Papers, all that stuff, right? And you have compliance officers that were impacted around the world, especially with Mossack Fonseca. They had 44 locations around the world. So they had licenses and offices around the world. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You can tackle it. They had all of these areas, and so you had some professionals, compliance and otherwise, who are like, right, peace, I'm out, because they don't necessarily want this to tarnish their career. And there were some who actually leaned in to say, if I could get this fixed, this is going to look amazing on my resume. And then there were other agents, different, lawyers and things that come in. I remember meeting a lawyer at a conference, and the lawyer had in his bio, he was a speaker. I think I might have been a speaker too, but he had in his bio that he had experience dealing with some of the fallout from Panama Papers. That was prominent in his bio. I will never put that in a written bio. It will come out in a discussion if you do the math and you see where my career, my career thing is there on LinkedIn. And you can carry the one and see that, okay, she was in this role when this happened, and this role when this happened. You will have an idea that I had these exposures, and especially given the job title, okay, Deputy Director Fiduciary Services, Trust Companies, so you will be able to extrapolate that. But it's one of the areas where I feel that people tend to miss opportunities in some cases. And in other cases, it's like, you have a difficult issue coming up and it's all this catastrophizing. They say that the most money is made in recessions and depressions, because it's those that have the steady hands that can actually stay the course when they're looking at these issues, and that they can objectively quiet the noise and focus on the issues at hand towards getting to a solution. And again, it's how you craft your narrative. How do you tell that story? So make sure, I guess this is the bonus tip number 2, make sure that as you advance in your career, you know how you want your story to be told, and that you're prepared to tell the story. And I'm going to end there. I am hungry. Typically I get, so if you're joining me a little late, because I was really late, I'm sorry. I had all kind of drama, but I had to get home safely. I had to make sure, I was just going with the flow. So thank you, Gabriel. I just had to go with the flow. And sometimes, we want things to be perfect, but guess what? I think on the drive home, I was like, life is not always perfect. So these things do happen and you have to roll. I didn't get upset. I wasn't trying to put my Jeep into super pursuit mode. If you're of a certain age and used to watch Knight Rider, you would know. I just got home, made sure I was safe, parked properly, did not break my leg trying to run from a huge frog that's set up outside. And I am like, I'm here and I am so happy. And this is the most engagement I have had. So I am thanking all of you. If you have any other questions, let me know. In next week, I'm going to announce what the next live is going to be in one of my shorts. So make sure that you subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, like my videos. It helps the algorithm and it helps spread my word globally because compliance is global. And thank you so much. It's leftovers, but it's leftovers is fish and mayonnaise sauce, so and it's awesome. But yes, next week, should I do a live next week? Actually, I'm going to be doing members space thing. So there's a link to my membership if you're interested. I never really plug it, but I do have a membership for compliance professionals because there's some things that I will not say out in a public domain that I might be freer to say in a private domain. But yeah, I will do a live. Um, I'm trying to keep it to Thursday. So if it's not next Thursday, it will be the following Thursday. I'm trying to build up a rhythm, but I'm also trying to, like, there's a lot going on in life still. And I also have to be mindful with the pain management and sitting and things, but I've been feeling a lot better, thankfully. So thank you all for jumping in. Thank you all for tuning in. I am so happy that y'all made it to the live. I hope it was valuable, and that there are tips here that you can use. And I will definitely catch you in another live not too long from now. And yeah, message me what topics you want to see. What topics are you interested in as compliance professionals? Some of the tips and some of the advice and some of the discussion points apply more broadly. If you have questions in relation to market conduct, because I had a short video on that, and that seems to be blowing up. Market conduct provisions that were issued by the Bank of Barbados and bank fees. Jesus, that might be the next live. Anyways, guys, let me go eat. Have a great night, and I will catch y'all on my next engagement. Thank you.